For your setup, you will need ingredients: tea, sugar, water, and your scoby. Airtight bottles for bottling later. Then you'll need a jug, a jar, and a breathable cloth. Look for white mouth jars, the bigger the better, because you're only going to harvest about a quarter of your ferment, or 25% of your ferment. The rest you're going to leave behind in your jar because you're going to let it continuously brew. Here I'm adding a half a cup of sugar to a cup of boiling water and stirring it to dissolve. I'm getting my tea bags ready and tying it to each other. Tying your tea bags together will help to remove it better, or to remove it easier. Cutting the cord and letting the tea bags steep in the hot boiling water. You will leave it to steep for around 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'm adding the rest of my water. This is now to cool down the brew so it's cool enough to add to my scoby and starter liquid. Always make sure that it's cool enough before adding any starter liquid or scoby to the brew, because you don't want to burn your scoby. Also make sure, if you're using a vessel with a tap, make sure that the tap is closed properly. This is a pouring technique for those that are brewing without a tap. Firmly grip the jar by the mouth and let it rest on your other hand and pour it into the cup or into the next jar. Here I'm adding a cup of starter liquid to the scoby and also testing the starter liquid with a pH test strip. You simply dip the pH test strip into the liquid and wait for the count of 15 counts out loud, and then you'll know what the pH is. Okay, here I'm adding the 2-liter tea to the starter liquid and closing it up with a rubber band so that the brew can breathe. Here I'm testing the pH of the brew after the tea is added. We are looking for a pH of 4, around about 4. Your first fermentation cycle will be 7 to 10 days, and thereafter you're only going to draw off 25% or a quarter of your brew, and then it would be ready in about 3 days maximum. Here I'm actually making a flavor, bottling some of the ready-made continuous brew kombucha and adding some flavor with the jam. We've now harvested a quarter to a half of the kombucha in the continuous brewing vessel. It's better to harvest a quarter or 25% because that helps for your brew to mature quicker. Gorgeous fermentation bubbles. Let your booch ferment for about 3 to 7 days so that it can mature in flavor and build carbonation. Here I'm making 1 liter of tea with a cup of boiling water, 2 tea bags and a quarter cup of sugar. I'm stirring it to dissolve and letting it steep for 10 to 15 minutes. Here I'm removing the tea bags and adding the rest of the water. This is now to cool down the brew and to make sure that it's cool enough to add to the scoby and starter liquid. We don't want to burn any beneficial yeast and bacteria. And when it's cool enough, add it to the hungry microorganisms that will be happily eating on the sugars and caffeine. And this brew should be ready within 3 days. In summer, the booch can be so live and active that it can brew and be ready within as little as 1 day. There you have it. This is how you set up and make your continuous brew. Brew,